Was the okay. Okay. Okay, good afternoon. Is it still afternoon? It's almost evening, isn't it? My name is Michael Gubbins. I'm going to be moderating this session. Before we start, if you look at the big screen on your right there, you will see a QR code, and if you can't get the QR code working, then a little URL at the top there, where you can, apparently you can contact me directly. Try not to be too rude. That's all I'm asking when you're doing it. But I can see, if there are questions, we'll try and feed those into the conversation here. This session is brought to you by the great EFM, of course, the Industry Sessions, which hopefully a number of you have been at already, and Europa Distribution. Those of you who don't know Europa Distribution, they are a network and thought leaders that I think are at the cutting edge of that interface between content and audience. And I think a lot of what we're talking about in this session will be about the realities today across Europe of how audiences engage in the real world with content. And whether we like it or not, we are cursed to live in interesting times because nothing will stay still. We've just got rid of the pandemic, and it feels like every year there's something changing all of the time. Now, this session will be clear that there has been progress, if you see it in those terms, certainly in terms of availability of European content. The Audiovisual Observatory reckons that on average, EU citizens have 13,000 pieces of European content available to them. It varies, and I think one of the reasons, one of the things, the themes of today's session is going to be that Europe is not a homogeneous whole. There are different levels of progress, there are different audience habits, and there are different options in lots of different countries. And I think it's very important to understand that. So a country like Greece, for example, which would not be seen at the advanced end here, I think. In 2019, the Audiovisual Observatory reckoned it had one VOD platform that it was monitoring. It's 25, I'm told today. So no, I'm saying this is about the monitoring. So what was being monitored at that time, now it's no longer, this is just a fraction of what's going on. So these are just the ones that people are now monitoring. So we are moving forward in terms of availability. But for the distribution's point of view, this is where distributor publishers come in, because someone has to turn availability into visibility. Someone has to turn availability into sustainable economic business. Something needs to keep these relationships between audience and content in ways that actually are usable. Because there is an illusion of choice with 13,000 pieces of content, and you need that expertise, that curation, that entrepreneurship that we're going to hear about today from our distributor publishers. So what we're going to start this session, I think you're going to, by the end of this session, you'll have a very clear idea in your head, I think, of just how dynamic the distribution sector is and has to be, because there's no opting out if you're a distributor or a publisher. There's no nice little way of getting some public money on the side here and not having to deal with the realities. These people are in the front line all the time of the way that these things work. So what we're going to do to start off with is Europa Distribution has been working closely to make sure there is academic realities to back up the things we're doing. So I'm going to introduce to the stage to begin Roderick Smits, who has looked at the VOD situation in a number of different countries. And he's going to give you an overview of just how different markets are developing in different ways. So Roderick from Carlos III University in Madrid, please come up.
Let me see how this works. Yes. Okay, yeah, welcome everyone. My name is Roderick. I'm interested in the film industry, of course. I'm interested in film distribution. I'm interested in film exhibition. I'm interested in the streamers, and I'm interested in how the kind of streaming market impacts on the film industry, and particularly film distribution and exhibition. So over the last few years, I've conducted a lot of interviews and talks with industry professionals. And in the last 12 months in particular, I've done a lot of interviews with independent film distributors in Europe. And that's what I'm really going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about how they are dealing with issues related to film circulation, online film circulation, and how they engage with streamers, okay? I have conducted interviews with distributors in Germany, in Spain, in the Netherlands, where I'm from, in Romania and in Norway, okay? So I'm going to provide an overview of each of those countries. I'm going to highlight key themes and issues that they are confronting in those countries. And I'm going to go fairly quickly to the slides, 5 slides. Okay, so Germany is a well-established streaming market with opportunities for independent distributors. We know that the big subscription VOD platforms, Netflix, Amazon, and others are operating in that market. We know that there are transactional VOD platforms, global transactional VOD platforms like iTunes, Google Play, and others. And we know that there's a group of much more kind of multinational national players. So in Germany, that's Telekom, Rakuten, and ProSieben. They are kind of telecommunication streamers, kind of media companies, traditional television broadcasters, and there's a group of much more kind of national-focused independent streamers. So in Germany, that's Kino on Demand. There's a distributor, Studio Canal, which has launched their own streaming service, Art House, very much kind of targeting an art house audience. And lastly, I'm interested in the kind of release strategies that are developed for films. So conventional release strategies are very much the sort of release strategies that distributors in Germany are holding on to. Alongside direct-to-VOD, but to a lesser extent, I suppose. Spain, also a well-established streaming market, a strong presence of kind of multinational players like Movistar, Rakuten, and Vodafone. We all know Filmin, a well-established player in Spain, but also known internationally, and mostly kind of targeting an art house audience for mostly independent films. Another example is the independent distributor Contra Corriente, which has launched their own streaming service. So you see that in various countries in Europe, that some of the distributors actually launched their own streaming service, and in that way engage much more kind of intensively with the streaming markets. Then, of course, in Spain, we have the kind of conventional release strategies, beginning with the cinema release and then subsequently in other markets that are most common as well. And that strategy exists alongside direct-to-VOD too. Online visibility, that came very strongly forward in the interviews. That's a big issue in Spain. In Spain, there's not so much of a market with streaming services that don't have these kind of large catalogs. So a problem there is that, you know, as an independent distributor, you are competing to many other films, and that's often a problem in terms of visibility. Marketing, so distributors organize marketing campaigns for their films, and some of the distributors work quite closely together with individual platforms to again get more visibility, enhance visibility for individual films. So that's quite an interesting initiative that we're probably going to talk about more in the kind of discussion that follows. So circulating films in the Netherlands is also a very well-established streaming market. So there's a strong presence here as a characteristic of more kind of independent streamers with kind of more curated catalogs. So Pickle, Cinemember, and Cinetree. Pickle is a platform that is often comes across as an example in discussions that provides an online presence for independent cinemas. A cut of every ticket goes back to the cinemas. Pathé Ties is, of course, the streaming platform from the well-known cinema chain Pathé, the French chain, who also operates in the Netherlands as a cinema chain. And we see in the Netherlands, quite interestingly, that conventional release strategies are common, but we also see a lot of experimentation with day and date. So independent distributors for some selected films, they really work together with Pickle, for example. The premium VOD window is also something that is quite prominent in the Netherlands, and direct-to-VOD exists alongside. Online visibility, because there are these kind of smaller specialized streaming platforms, online visibility, there's less competition amongst film on these platforms, and therefore visibility is relatively stronger. So that's another finding that I think could be discussed in more detail. And brand building from distributors, independent distributors. So now we have these channels on various streaming platforms. There's Amazon, there's Apple TV+, there is Vimeo, for example. They offer distributors the opportunity to create their own channels and therefore to have the direct connection between streaming services and audiences. And I think this is, again, something that will be discussed a little bit more. Norway is a fairly established streaming market. We all know Viaplay, but there are a range of other players as well. SF Anytime, LT-Box, Blockbuster. The market for art house streamers is less developed. That's came strongly forward in the kind of conversation that I've had with independent distributors. Vega Home is one example of a transactional VOD streamer that is much more specifically developed for independent films. And again, they hold on to a more kind of conventional staggered release strategies. And there's the kind of relationship between the theatrical release and the online release in terms of performance of films. That came very strongly forward. So if a film performs better in cinema, it's often supportive for the online release as well. In particular, deals with kind of subscription VOD platforms. They work often with kind of intermediaries, such as content aggregators, to enable access to the platforms. And I think the subscription VOD rights, how that's organized in Norway is kind of interesting because Norway is part of the Scandinavian territory. And how that normally works, according to the interviews I had, or kind of sometimes occurs, is that a distributor buys the rights, the distribution rights for Scandinavia, and subsequently separates those rights. And then the Norwegian distributor buys the rights, but the rights are not available for export. So a strong cinema performance in the Norwegian market is, of course, beneficial, but the distributor then doesn't have the rights for the subscription VOD market, so there's not necessarily a relationship there. And that's considered to be kind of disappointing for the distributor. Last slide is about Romania. It's what I would call a developing streaming market, and also the kind of independent distributors I've talked to. There's a strong presence of kind of global and national players, but the TV players, Google Play, iTunes, they have not really developed there yet, which is of course an issue, and again a sort of comparison with other markets. The market for art house streamers is also less developed. Distributors that I've spoken to, they create channels on Vimeo and Eventbook, not probably the most popular channels in comparison to other markets. Transylvania International Film Festival has launched the TVOD platform TIFF Unlimited, but that's yet to develop a bit more. Conventional release strategies, they're on very much to those strategies. There's also direct to VOD. And again, the SVOD's rights is something that came up in the interviews. Romania is part of the kind of Eastern European territory, and deals for SVOD are normally, in some cases at least, that I got from the interviews, are negotiated with a sales agent rather than the individual distributor that operates in Romania. So again, the individual distributor is left out in terms of SVOD's rights, and that's considered to be problematic. Last theme that I would like to discuss is really about data sharing. So of course, we live in a digital age, we have access to data, but the data normally stays with the streaming platform. So more transparency is needed from streamers for their acquisition of films, and also to organize the marketing campaigns to really target the audience demographic they want. Okay, hopefully this provides a basis for the rest of the discussion. We're now talking about other countries as well, so that will probably be interesting. Thank you.
Okay, Roger, do you want to grab a seat at the end there, and I'll introduce you to our panel, who are going to rush up here at high speed.
Sit in red.
There you go. You get a round of applause just for being able to get onto a stage, which I can understand. So what we have here is a range of different countries. I would say, the emphasis here is on this incredibly complex VOD platforms, the VOD platforms and the rise of the online. Must never forget, this is about balancing all those other things, thinking particularly of theatrical and how that fits into our market, and also television. So, and in each case, I think we get an idea already of the complexity of what we're talking about here, and complexity seems like exactly the right word. So if we can introduce from, I'll start at the end there with the pink hair. Is it pink? I believe it's called pink. It's Chrissy Poirier, who's the acquisition manager of FilmStop in Estonia, but actually has got a good experience, I think, to share about smaller countries, and obviously those Baltic countries. They'll have a particular set of needs. Then we're going to move on to Elise van Mark from the Netherlands and the Searchers. It's not just a distributor, I'd say. It's one of those companies that these days are a growing kind of media organization. But again, from the Netherlands, where I think we've seen the Netherlands always seem to be ahead here somehow, and we'll talk about and
it's Benelux. We can't
Benelux,
forget
sorry.
Belgium.
I don't know
also.
why I said the Netherlands, but of course, I apologise to Belgium and Luxembourg. And actually, it's a chance to point out here that actually stretching out beyond those individual countries actually is a really important part of what we're doing here, and it gives us a chance to look at those different territories. So Anastasia Plazota from, I think, is it your 10th anniversary now of Wanted? Exactly. I think that deserves a round of applause, surely, a decade.
We survived.
Of Wanted in Italy, and again, I think we'll get a very strong sense of the contrast between different countries. And then Ivo Andele, who probably is familiar to some of you from the Czech Republic, but also covers Slovakia, and also you also go into Hungary too. You've got a kind of regional reach with Aerofilm, but as we'll hear when we talk to you, I think there's a kind of wide range again of interests from cinemas right the way through to TV and VOD platforms. So. That's a lot. So you're going to be getting through a lot of this point. I would remind you to keep your eye on the screen. If you do have something you want to say, do feel free to contact me. and I will try and slip that into the conversation somehow. But let's start with Elise. So, first of all, when you look at the Benelux area and you look at that discussion of the Netherlands there, is that what, do you recognize that? Is that that kind of very dynamic, fast-moving, flexible situation? Is that how you see it?
I think that the Netherlands is has always been a very healthy landscape. There has been a lot of work in schools and educational, and we have like a really good system in theaters. We have a lot of small theaters, independent theaters. So it has always been a really good market. I think it was also one of the markets that recovered pretty quick after the COVID situation. But that's not the same for Belgium. Belgium is much slower and is also much more complex. We have a Flemish-speaking part and we have a French-speaking part. We have to deal with a lot, and also the taste is different.
What's the difference? What do Belgians like that the Netherlands don't like?
Well, this is a funny thing.
Waffles,
This is a funny thing. If you have a French movie, you can release it in Wallonie, in the French-speaking part. The Flemish people don't go watch it. In the Netherlands, they go and watch it. But then if you have a horror movie, the French go there and the Flemish people stay home. We don't get it. They all have their particular...
Yeah. So Benelux, I think it's just worth pointing out, it sounds like one word, but it's a complex market.
It's a complex market, absolutely. And in the online world, it's even more complex because the streamers treat us as 3 different countries.
Yeah, and just to be clear, because we're going to go into how you deal with these, but the streamers are very well established in
They are very much established in the Netherlands. I must say in Belgium it's not the same. Netflix is very much there, but like some other streamers have difficulty figuring out how the languages work. And that annoys a lot of people, because when you're in Flanders, you want to have English movies, and when you're in Wallonie, you want French movie or dubbed movies. When it goes wrong, then you're really disappointed. You're like, I don't want to watch that movie in French, or I don't want to watch that movie. And some of them struggle with it. And
okay, we'll come to how you navigate that, because that is quite an important point, that even though you may have the big streamers there, they actually operate quite differently in terms of how you can be flexible with them and work with them. We'll come to this. Let's just get a snapshot of the countries first. So if we go over to Italy, Anastasia, that's that same level, that same kind of landscape isn't really there in the same way, is it?
No, I don't think so. In the sense that nowadays the situation, of course, we have well-established platforms, of course. We have well-established but we have a lot of platforms which are for art house movies that are born during pandemic, but they are still there. Doing nothing. It's not. They don't do any revenue, any profit, because of all the dependent distributors like us, for example, open their own platforms during pandemic, and then after, when everything, thanks God, started again in terms of theatrical, we also left it there. So the situation is similar somehow as, like in Germany, we have an international big streamers. But talking about the art house, the situation is very sad somehow. Because
so oddly enough, you have a more homogeneous market in terms of a single language, but the problem you have is that during the pandemic, you're saying the TVOD side of things, everyone wanted to have a go at because you didn't have your customers. And obviously Italy, as I recall, shut first in the pandemic. But so what is the key operations? Are we still at the point of TV and theatrical? What is the driving force still in the Italian market?
Now, we have as distributors, most part of my colleagues have an aggregator. So the idea is to put our content everywhere possible. So on the big ones like iTunes, Google, and everywhere, like Rakuten, Chile, we all have this. We have all these platforms, but at the end, the revenues are so small that we also think of opening, for example, our own Amazon channel, because in Italy we say now in the last year there's the TVOD is going down and down, and the SVOD is going up and up more and more, especially Amazon. So Amazon is doing a very big increasing of the revenues.
I really want to get into depth on that because I think that's really important. But in terms of your options, the traditional options are there. The TVOD landscape kind of disappeared. SVOD isn't really giving you the financial side. So is Amazon the market leader? What's the market leader in Italy in terms of SVOD that you could sell a film to, theoretically?
Amazon is the market leader.
Yeah.
But they don't make the acquisitions paying a flat fee with the kind of movies we have. I mean, art house. So the situation is quite sad. I mean, for us, it's only TV, the traditional TV sales. Or also the AVOD. Is another option. The AVOD mainly, Rai, for example, has its own AVOD platform that goes quite well, and they make acquisitions. So they pay you a flat fee to have an exclusive right on the platform, and this is for us a very interesting option. Or also platforms like Mubi that in our country are growing, and so they pay a flat fee, and so they can be partners. And you imagine, in the past there used to be also Sky being pay TV and also platform, but they acquired the SVOD right. Nowadays is less, and so Mubi and Rai are becoming more and more important for us.
That's interesting. And AVOD, for those, I'm sure most of you know, but the free-to-air backed by advertising, that was... There was some thoughts it was going to become huge, but perhaps the pandemic collapse in advertising revenues kind of slowed that down. But you still see potentially something there as an option.
Yeah. Also, the fast channels is something that is going to happen more and more in Italy. There are, I think, like 100 fast channels.
Yeah.
So which is a lot, but they don't. The revenues are still very low. On Samsung and Pluto, which are the two main players in the fast channel world.
Okay, so lots of options, but actually finding the options that are viable, I think, is the bit we're going to come to in a moment. So the Czech Republic and the kind of region you cover, give us just a quick snapshot of what you have to face in your markets.
Well, from what I hear, I feel that, countries like Czech Republic, which is relatively much smaller market for the big global players, is not of a priority. It's not a place that they would come first. So there was kind of a window of opportunity, I think, for lots of the local strong TV channels who start building their own platforms. And the biggest one at the moment is claiming to have about 500,000 subscribers, which is a very strong player at the moment, and it might make it even more difficult now for the other bigger players to enter the market. I'm speaking about, Amazon, Rakuten. Those players are not active, or relatively on a very small scale active. So I think this is what makes it different for us. Our approach from the very beginning, which is about 10 years ago, was that if we rely on other platforms, we might be losing something. So from the very beginning, as soon as it was possible, we started to building our own platform, and we keep doing this now also under the new setup, because we have new investors in the company for whom this is a priority thing. So we kind of wanted to go independent, and with whatever pluses and minuses it brings. So at the moment, I think the discussion is changing from what it was 10 years ago when we first started was, is it VOD and cinemas, is it the biggest enemies ever? And maybe we all forgot about the discussion, but it was a very heated one. We are also running cinemas, so at that time we were kind of rebelling this, and our cinemas were actually promoting the VOD channel that we opened, which was weird to a certain extent. Now it's quite common. And then I feel that this discussion is switching to another one, which is how do we actually make people watch films at home? It's not anymore about watching film and cinema against VOD, home watching, but now it's about, okay, so if you don't go out, which is totally different experience, there's this social aspect and everything, but if you stay home, still you have so many other options of audiovisual content to choose from. Then I think the key question for us at the moment is how do we make sure that we are visible enough and attractive enough for people to actually make the choice at home and watch our film.
We'll come into those tactics, but there are a couple of things that leap out immediately. First of all, because it was slower to get in, that did leave the big streamers, that did leave a bit more of an indigenous market to grow, perhaps more organically. That's I think is interesting when you move forward. But it is a point that we all need to look at, is that idea of cinema versus VOD. There's now, I think, a growing sense there is film, or there is whatever our product might be, against all the other ways that people can spend their spare time. And that feels to me like tactically and in terms of business, quite a different kind of approach and thinking. And we'll come into how you're doing this as we go on. But let's bring Chris in, because obviously in terms of the Baltics and the smaller Baltic countries, perhaps it's a different picture.
Of course, it's a super small market. If Czech says that it's small, then we are small, actually. So I would say that, of course, we don't have big platforms which are made in Baltics, which are super popular. Of course, most of people watch things in Netflix. But then I would say that Netflix does not do subtitling to local languages, which means that usually the people who watch the content are rather young and growing audience for that matter. On the other hand, where the older people then watch their content is, of course, TV channels and the providers who have this that you can watch later on the films which were there, or of course the TV series as well. So I would say we have a lot to do and a lot to go, but we go there.
So again, this is a theme that's going to go through. There's a demographic. There's different when we're trying to reach different audiences on different channels. There's a complexity involved, but. Getting used to be that you had one strategy. You would get the audience in the cinema and then the audience on whatever platform. But that seems a much more complicated operation, trying to reach different demographics at different times. And that's one of the things we'll explore as we go on. If we can start, though, with, if we go back to you, if we can, Elise. Emily, in the audience on my phone here, this is hot off the press. I mean, she actually makes the point that I was going to make very well, which is what we're talking about here is how do we find those audiences on those different platforms and make all of them feel like some kind of event? How do we get the excitement of cinema into these other areas? And you've experimented to an extent with that kind of Windows approach. So tell us how you go about doing it, Elise.
First of all, the searchers, we buy very commercial movies, like extremely commercial movies, and we buy art house. Art house makes our team really happy, and the finance people get really happy with the commercial. So that means, first of all, that we have the luxury of selling to streamers easily. Because we have the commercial product, the streamers are happy to buy with us, and then we take the more art house movies and we just push them with it. It's like a package deal. So that is easier than for everyone who only buys crossover movies and art house movies. So that's number one. But then number two is what we did was we're a young company. We're fierce. We want to change the world. So we went against everyone. And we said we want to have a theatrical release and a streamer almost day and date. they hated us. All the complexes hated us, but we pushed with it, and we could only push it through because we had big movies. So they fought us, but not both ways. First we did was we took a movie, we said to the theaters, hey, we're gonna give you, I think 10 days or something, you get 10 days of exposure, and then it's going to Amazon. And first they said no, but because it was such a big movie, they couldn't refuse us. And so they did. The second thing was, we also did the other way around with movies that we got from Netflix. At one point, Netflix asked us to release. And they wanted us just to release on Netflix. And we said, like, no, this needs a theatrical release. And so we had to fight them on the other side, showing them the other way, like, okay, no. I think in the Netherlands now, and Belgium too, they are coming closer and closer and closer. They're not afraid anymore. They do understand that sometimes a movie needs the theatrical exposure to do well on VOD. And some films are made to be in theater. They need to be there. You can't watch them at home.
I mean, it sounds great, and it's what people imagined we would be talking about, but that's a big negotiation that a lot of people are saying can't happen. You know,
and I need to be honest, we've been working on this for 6-7 years. We were one of the first, and we were really fierce. It takes a lot of strength, but we had to do it. We had to change it, and again, it goes slow, but then the pandemic kind of helped us in the fact that suddenly the theaters were closed, so we had to sell everything to the streamers. The streamers were super happy. Then we had a foot in there, then we could go back to the theaters. Well, it all worked for us. But again, these are negotiations that take a long time with a lot of fighting. But we did, and we kind of won.
And is it Amazon you're working with mainly, or are you working with all the streamers with this approach?
We work mainly with Amazon for this approach, and then Netflix, we did it a couple of times, but we sell to all streamers, but mostly to Amazon.
Yeah, and I think it's really worth pointing out at this stage, because this is the theme that's going to go through, is marketing to each one of these individual platforms, or trying to do it's very complex and very difficult when you haven't established a film. What you're saying is this works for films that everyone is pretty much going to have heard of one way or another. So you mentioned Past Lives, I think, before, it's that kind of level where this strategy works. But for a smaller art house, and presumably you buy some of those smaller films as well, is that that's a different strategy you would need for that?
For instance, we did Lamb. I loved Lamb. But yeah, no, you can't ask Amazon to, like, this is going to be a big movie for you guys, because it's not. I do think it's going to change somewhere, but if it's too small, we can't do it.
Yeah.
But every movie needs a different approach, and also has a different audience. And sometimes we don't even know the audience, although I've been doing this for 13 years now. When I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, the first version, I thought, who is going to watch this? Me? But I'm going to be the only one who saw it. What is the demo for that movie? What is the demographics? Who is it? Who's watching this? Apparently everyone. But
the core of this is establishing a film is different. Where it's a big film, there's one strategy. And I think it's important because there isn't one strategy. I think people, when we recall ye olde days of film distribution and film these kind of discussions, it tended to be as if we were looking for one solution, but that isn't the case, is it, at all? And if from the Italian, so you're from an Italian point of view, and it says you're not looking for those, you're not in that same market of the giant film kind of approach, are you? But it's you're also working with Amazon. I think it's really worth sharing because this is also perhaps a way of using Amazon and those relationships in a different kind of way for perhaps smaller films. So tell us what you're thinking or trying to do with Amazon.
Yeah, no, you mentioned Lamb, and I know the figure. We also distributed Lamb, so now as being our movie, I can show you the figures. We give lamb as in TVOD platform everywhere, to everybody had it. At the cinema went quite well. We got in 1 year like 2,000 over, I mean, nothing.
Yeah.
So it's I mean, worldwide. So 2,000. Thanks God we were able to sell it to Mubi, and so we collected a bit of money. So it's really a cherry picking kind of job. And the TVOD, we were discussing with Eva yesterday. Is it worthwhile to do a sort? Because also we have our own platform. So, and we have our own plan. We opened it during pandemic, as I was saying, and it's still there with our technical friend, My Movies, which is a very important Italian partner that has his own, and is launching very strongly his own SVOD platform of art house movies. So we put our catalog there. So we converted the TVOD into SVOD, but the results are still very, we don't know, growing, but. And also we have our own platform, TVOD platform. And we were thinking of, we have to make a sort of exclusivity. Does the brand, the idea of having all the exclusive on our channel is paying money somehow? I don't know. In our case, we are trying to do the opposite, because we are really thinking of, it's peanuts so far, also big with titles that in theatrical distribution had big numbers, not only mine titles, but I know the results of some important Italian titles that got maximum 20,000 euros of TVOD plus VOD, so it's really nothing. So we decided, we are trying also to open our own Amazon channel. So putting all the catalog there. So it's not confirmed yet. Of course, we are discussing, we want to discuss, but the idea is really to do everything's possible, but we don't expect so much money, but at least one peanut there, one peanut. Sometime, I hope at the end of the month to be able to pay the salary to 1 or 2 people. So we don't, so far for us, VOD is really...
Yeah. I'm getting, there's a lot of peanuts in there. It does strike me, the problem with peanuts, and if we can now use that as the terminology, meaning experimenting with those small different kinds of releases, the thing that always gets me when I'm talking to people like yourselves in that distribution and publishing side is, Elise with her bigger film, she just goes in and she kicks some ass, I think. Just going in there and you've got your deal done. There's a mechanism for doing it. With yours, it feels like there has to be work for those peanuts. It doesn't just come. You don't just stick it somewhere. You've got to think about how the audience, what kind of audience is going to be interested in this kind of thing. Does that motivate you more towards trying to find, the Amazon approach seems to be, let's put it in one place at least and not keep having to do that much work for not much return?
So far, all the work has always been mainly, apart from the pandemic time, it was a parenthesis, for theatrical. We work very, very hard, as everybody, of course, on theatrical. So when the movie goes to the platform, we don't have the strength, we don't have the money, we don't have the people dedicated to market the titles for the platform. So at that point, the title has to live his own life, and we don't invest anymore anything on the platform, on the VOD release, because we cannot afford it. So all the job comes somehow from theatrical. And my aggregator told me that, Anastasia, you have to put the titles as soon as possible to the platform, because it's statistics, it's numbers. The most results are in the first 6 months after the theatrical release, after the title disappears. So it's a question of time. To answer your question, nowadays we don't do that. We work on the theatrical and then we leave.
Okay,
like
so the theatrical bounce is still really important.
Yeah.
You can say no, but you can tell us what the Amazon deal might be to do that. You can say no.
No. You mean for the?
I don't know. How does that work? I mean, if you're going to have an SVOD thing where you're going to stick your things on Amazon, presumably they take percentages and so on.
Oh yeah. No. I know because there's a single. Every single. It's not for everybody the same. Mainly, you don't have to. You have to convince them to.
Yeah.
Because you should have a lot of titles first.
Yeah.
At least 200 titles. So you cannot open it like this. And then every month you have to give at least 8, 9 new titles,
Right.
which is something.
And they
every month.
take a percentage, presumably, as they go along.
Of the subscriptions.
Yeah.
They take a percentage of every single subscription, and you can choose. It's mainly it's from 4 to 8 euros is the cost of the subscription for your own channel. So they take a good percentage.
Okay, well, I mean that seems like a growth area. Ivo, from yours, I mean, you were talking, I think, very interestingly about trying to establish with different kinds of films. You've got to create that sense of an event that covers all of those different ways that you engage with film these days. It's not that the big film bounce doesn't always work, does it? So what works for different titles for you?
I was gonna say that for us, I feel like every title is a special kid that needs special care, and so we don't have one rule for all. We also like to combine bigger films with smaller films, and in the same time in this discussion, I feel a little bit paranoid. Not paranoid, but no. That's not the right word. I feel a little bit like jumping from one side to another, because as a distributor and as a VOD platform, there is always different point of views. So about 2 years ago, with this new investment into this VOD platform, we decided we'll give it a try and push as hard as we can towards the marketing, towards the label, and towards the content. So because we feel that to have certain titles on exclusive basis is really key for the growth of the platform. So as a distributor, we sacrifice now other deals, and we just keep our films for this platform, and especially on TVOD as soon as we can. And we believe, and it proves to be right, that the attractive films that are coming from theatrical with some aura around them, and they land on TVOD on our platform exclusively in the territory, that actually attracts so much traction that the way it's like magnetic for the subscription later. So because we combine on our platform subscription and TVOD, you can always choose. But if you are a subscriber, your TVOD comes much cheaper. So that's the strategy we've been trying to actually apply the last 2 years, and we hope we will soon reach the point where this will pay back.
And exclusivity is still that's still a critical part of your business.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And it's the market. We had Ava out there is talking about how Arte is now kind of demanding more of these kind of broader online releases. So it's a more competitive market now, isn't it? There's more people coming in, and you were saying maybe you had a little bit of an easier or a freer run at this at the beginning than it is now. Is it getting more complex and difficult?
Yeah, always. I mean, the older times seem to be easier than what's coming next. But I don't know. We just try to focus on what we do, what I just described, and just make sure that we have good content in the right time for the right people. We also put a lot of stress now to like a data analysis, because with this new environment we are building, it's a film festival, major film festival, Karlovy Vary, distributor Aerofilms, and the platform in the middle. We actually collect a lot of data from all these 3 sources that we can combine and see who the customers are of all those 3, who likes to go to cinema, who likes to watch films online, and who likes to go to festival, and what type of film they would like to watch there. And we are trying to learn as much as possible from combining these 3. We hope it's not always the same people, because that That's it. That's the very limited market. We hope we can always bring something attractive for people that we can reach through cinemas, and we can always try to attract them to go to also watch film online or come to festival, combinations of those.
And I think we've had a couple of questions from the audience on this very subject, because it's what seems to be the shift, and I guess this is all of you. So data plays a big part in this, but the audience, the emphasis is on understanding and trying more and more to be understanding how audiences work and relate to things. It isn't, when you see a lot of platforms arising, you don't begin with the platforms, you begin with audience behavior. That seems to be at the heart of all of your strategies. That feels like a change. Christy, maybe you could just, from your point of view over in the Baltic countries, does that same sense of a change of thinking apply?
I mean, I think all the people want to live easy. The easier it's possible, the better. So wherever you can get the contact, the easiest. I think, of course, the subscriptions are easy, TV is easy, and screens everywhere, internet everywhere. So
of course, you probably should explain that those who don't know, Estonia is like the epicenter of
internet.
Of the internet.
Yes, internet everywhere. But I mean, we have long way to go. So I don't have I have many things to learn from you guys. So I'm happy to take over some of the good tips.
But do you feel, I mean, it's an important point when we're looking at different countries. Is that feeling of being behind and waiting for things to catch up part of the way you work, or is it more, do you feel like there's a closer connection to your country? There's a different way that your audiences behave compared to these, or do you see a revolution coming up the road?
I don't see a VOD revolution coming from Estonia. We can give other revolutions.
Yeah. It probably wasn't the time to be talking about revolutions in Eastern Europe, but so apologies
Ouch.
for that.
Yes.
But the point being that there is a sense that things will come your way over a period of time.
Yes.
So you can learn from other people.
They will definitely come. So,
Yeah. Okay.
But it's just very important to note that Baltic countries and Estonia especially is like so super small. So even if I have written to Netflix and asked that, okay, maybe we can do some theatrical screenings even, then for them they say, no, it's too small market for us and there is no point for us just wasting time. So, I mean, when we are part of something bigger, I think, then it's something to discuss.
And do the Baltic countries work together at all to try and create some kind of scale rather than individual countries?
Yes and no. I mean, with some businesses, yes, and with some, no. So I think we are together, but we are separate as well. It depends what is the fight for.
Okay, well, I mean, again, there's not a great surprise, but the smaller markets here. But from Elisa's point of view, yours isn't a huge. Benelux is big in comparison to there, but it's not I think there's a lot of interest in how you do this. There's lots of people wanting to know all of your numbers actually online here, but you are still leveraging a relatively small area and asking quite a lot for it. So when we're looking at how we might move forward, do you think we should be being more confident in terms of do you think those same doors would open elsewhere if that same approach was taken?
I think one of the things that we must not forget, we're distributors. Distributors buy content. Most of the content we buy on a script basis.
Yeah.
Today, I had to think about what will people watch in 3 years from now, maybe 4 years from now. I have no idea. This is the first thing that I need to to know. The second thing is, what will the streamers want? What do the theaters want? Will people go? Will people? I have seen I have kids. My kids watch a whole movie on their cell phone. I'm just like, really, a whole movie? But is that also the future? So it's also about content, and it's about will every movie? Some movies don't work anymore. 10 years ago, you could have a movie with a soldier standing in the snow for 3 hours, and we would watch it. Today we don't. We passed that. Maybe some of us, but so the taste of audience is also changing. So how they're watching is changing, but also their taste is changing. So it's also about buying the right stuff and listening to the young people and also the older people, because sometimes I think we forget the older people. That means like. People of today that are 60, when I was younger, someone who was 60 was like old, 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 old. Today, someone who is 60, they still, my mom is 64 or 2, and she parties more than I do. And she has money, and she spends money in theaters, but she also needs more developed content.
Yeah.
And I think that is also one of the things. We need more intelligent content. And there's a whole market there. They don't want to watch all the they don't want to watch all the Japanese whoosh whoosh whoosh. No, they want to see something intelligent. I want to see something intelligent. And so for streamers also, that is going to be a very big market. And I think that should also
No, you've thrown in a really big thing here, which I think explains some of the complexities of what distributors do as well. Is first of all, if you're looking at a script today, you're not going to see that product for 3 or 4 years potentially, and you have no idea. Well, our robot overlords could have taken AI. They could be in complete control by then. So you are making judgments and guesses, and you're also saying that the audience isn't simple. The age thing is very interesting. Do jump in, anyone, on this, but the average age in Germany now is 50.
that's what
And when I was a kid, I think it was 32. So there are a lot of older people who are now. 60 isn't much above the average age anymore. So I think that sense of when you're looking at content, and maybe all of you can give us some insights here, but when you're looking at content, you are trying to. You have to see it in those demographic terms, and when you are looking at the platforms they're going on, you've also got to understand how those different age groups use those different platforms, which seems quite difficult to me. It's a call which is changing as well. So 10 years ago, Facebook was a young person's thing. Now Facebook is what your kids tell you they're on while they're doing whatever they're doing elsewhere. It's the world's moved. It's changed. Is that the same? That sense that you've got to think about the demographics. You've got to think about the different uses. Is that something that informs everyone else's opinion too?
Yeah, I would agree totally. The way I deal with this is that I hire very young people to my office so that I don't lose track of what's going on. And they tell me basically to shut up most of the time because I'm... So that's how I deal with that, to stay relevant for certain audiences. But for the older ones, I can maybe have a word still. Yeah, it's a challenge that's always there. I know there's many distributors here, and so I think we all experience the worst nightmare of those morning screenings for like 20 people that pre-bought a film, and then you are the first audience to watch it in the market, and you see the money you spend on the screen, and however the film is good, you always leave depressed. So then you have like 11 in the morning, beginning of the market, people smoking outside, and it's like a bunch of 20 people. If you pass the cinema and you see them, it's people that pre-bought a movie, just watched it. So, and then maybe later it's a hit, but when you don't know, when you're just the first person to watch it, that's I hate those. So, even then, and then, I mean, it's always been a gamble, and I think that's what's attractive about this job, right? That you never know until the very last minute, until the people start buying tickets, you never know if you did the right thing. And those people that do know, I don't believe them. Those are all these like market specialists. I don't think it's true. Nobody knows that. We always, every time we release a movie, we have a internal competition that we bet how many people would watch it in the first weekend in cinemas.
Yeah.
And the world should never see what numbers we put in, because that's sometimes gets disgusting. Either way, you know, too optimistic, too pessimistic. So to certain point, I don't think there is an answer to this.
No, there's not. But I was enjoying your trying to answer it. It was.
Thank you.
But it is true that the. You know, and I'm going to come to Roderick in a moment, but when you look at the way that that young people engage with content, or you look at it, changes all of the time. So the idea that there will be this point at which you can reach perfection, you know, and I think some of the AI stuff at the moment may make you make better guesses, but at the end of it, there's still a hell of a lot of the work that you do is taking risk. And that to me is one of the key elements of what makes distribution and publishing both more essential than ever in some ways, but also a kind of crazy thing to do, is that you are taking those gambles. You have to take those gambles.
Can I add to that when we were building the company, when we started, we wanted to do 8 movies. That was our idea. And then our numbers didn't work out at all. We had to do 25. So it took us 13 years to get to 25 movies. We've been to 25 movies for a while now. And our investors are always very disappointed in September. They're like, how are you going to make so much money in the next 3 months? And then we have to explain to them, like, most movies are released in the last 3 months. Yeah, that's when we make money. And then they're like, can you not just do every? And I'm like, no, every time again, we can't. But the other thing is that when you buy 25 movies, you know 2 are going to horribly fail, 1 is going to overperform, and all the rest is going to work out. So we figured out for Benelux, it worked out like, okay, 25 movies, 2 fails, like big ones, like 0, 0, 0, 0. And then the one that outperforms this year was Past Lives, and that's great. That makes our year. That's more like, whoa. And then all the others do what we think they do. Meaning that the moment that we do acquisition, we buy on gut feeling, on the script, on what we feel, when we know the director or not, what the whole team feels. I think this is also one of the things as a distributor that we do different at the Searchers is everyone in our company, we don't mind what your job is. Everyone can read scripts. Everyone. And everyone can give their opinion. And if you fall in love with a project, we'll back you. Well, if it's like reasonable, but we'll back you. This means that we have a very dedicated team, and the team feels, and they're all like, no, I don't like that. Yes, I like that. Oh, wow, I like that. And that's the one thing. And then we have this one guy, and everyone needs a guy like that in your team that is like, he knows all the numbers, all the box offices of all the other movies, and he makes comps all the time. And he gives us like, okay, this is the highest it can go, this is the lowest it can go, so probably it end up here. This is what you can pay. And for us that works. But it's like math together with gut feeling and a very, very driven team. Like not one person reading, like everyone reading together.
I'm happy just moderating. I think and presumably that's the same with you, Anastasia. I think we're getting to the point where you are dealing with the gut feeling because you still can't easily decide whether something is going to be a hit. You are dealing with a changing tastes of audiences as they go on. And those changing tastes about where they expect and want to actually watch those films is there. And all the time you've got this enormous increase in other things that can be done, which I think is was one of the key points I think you were making, Ivo. But that sense of a growing complexity of a market. But what I'm getting from all of you is, at the end of it, there is one bit which is simple. At the end of it, there is someone, and there is the content. And you have got to work out how to get into that consciousness of that someone, and you've got to build up your knowledge, you've got to build up your tactics, you've got to build up your understanding of how those things work. And that feels to me like at least there's something that doesn't change. It just seems to get more complex. And all of you seem to have just come up with, you seem to be changing, and the flexibility is there all the time, isn't it? Presumably, you never feel like you've got a model that's stuck. It's always changing all of the time. So we could have this conversation next year, and you could be saying what a terrible idea last year's idea was. Roderick, no, he won't do it. It'll be brilliant. But Roderick, you've had a listen to these countries. Give us some reflections. Looking at your research and your thinking.
Yeah, complexities, I fully agree. Imagine being an academic researcher and having to research this. It's complex, and I know that there's academics in the audience today which have a similar research interest, but it's a difficult job, and it's not always appreciated, I suppose. But also, I think European policymaking, they kind of experience the same difficulties, because it's not a national market, it's a European market, and if there are so many differences between large and smaller markets, and even within the category of smaller markets, there's a lot of differences between the markets and the countries. I think that's very complex, and it's definitely something I'm experiencing in my work, and I'm sure they are experiencing the same. What was the question again?
No, I think you did well. I was asking for your reflections, and you were saying, yeah, it's really complicated. Which is, that's why you've got the doctorate, and the big...
Now, I think it's also about measuring circulation, and what I've been doing, of course, there's plenty of reports about quantitative research, about kind of stats, figures about how films circulate online, and I think these reports are very important. But what I've been doing now is talking a lot with the industry about kind of live, active issues that are taking place right now, and those kind of experiences really inform what kind of audience outcomes there will be. So I'm actually, this is much more relevant than just getting the figures, because if you only get the figures, you don't get the kind of nuance and the complexities of the markets. So I think we should continue this conversation and the kind of difference between these markets and the comparisons from a much more kind of qualitative perspective than maybe the kind of quantitative perspective that we get to know very well at this point. So I think it's the combination of both that I would.
That's a very academic answer.
Yeah, it is.
Quantitative and qualitative, my two favourites.
I would like to also add that I think it's not popular thing to say, but I don't think all the films needs to be released anyways. So everyone really needs to be very cautious about should you make the film, and then should you choose the film, and then really should you release the film, or where should you put it? So let's not do too much stuff.
Isn't the argument, just to put the other side, that actually you can make an argument that they're perhaps public money? I think everyone should make a film. Everyone in the world, but the question is whether it goes into the market and whether it becomes something which is there. But you're right, we're talking about if there are 13,000 European works per person available right now online, that's going to take you a while. That's I think it's the wine list theory of choice as well, that 1,000 choices of wine isn't really a choice. You're just going to take the second least expensive. But whereas 10 is a choice. So I think, again, that pushes towards what you've all been saying, which is curation and entrepreneurship are the two things that always strike me when I'm hearing you talk, apart from patience. which seems to be like something you have no choice of. I just want to end, if we can, with just, if from a policy perspective, from a European perspective, is there something that could help you, that could take you further than that could actually support the work that you're doing and maybe make it a bit easier? When you look at European policy and you look at public funding and ways that we could make these things happen, because you are the interface between content and people. Is there something you'd like to see more of?
If I may, and I'm not sure this is about policies, but I'll say it anyway. We spoke about the day-and-date releases or different variations of the theatrical windows. In our case, definitely more than 50% of our releases is online before we go theatrical within our biggest competitor, which is the pirates. And that is big distraction for our business, actually. And I think that if there is any kind of help, which I don't know what that would be, that would actually help to, make the piracy lesser or lower, and that would be great. So, in our case, it's so common that the film is out like weeks before we go that it's actually part of the release strategy now, in a way, like, because if it gets good, reviews from the pirates, we can actually use it to the advantage then of the theatrical release.
Is that really true?
That is true. I'm not joking.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. I mean, it is interesting that piracy has indeed been going back up, and it's I don't think people necessarily understand just how much competition for time and particularly, I guess, in the current economic climate is actually bringing more competitors, and pirates are very much in that kind of competitive set, aren't they?
Well, I mean, I take the argument when somebody says there is not enough of official offer of the titles. I totally agree. I myself am very many times frustrated that I can't find movie online which I would like to see. So that's one thing. I think the industry hasn't been doing a very good job in that. Offering as much as possible online. So in those cases, but in cases that of a new film that is just being released, I would be very strict because that's a different kind of story.
Yeah. But you could employ the reviewers. They sound like they know what they're doing. The pirate reviewers.
Well, film buffs.
A pirate reviewer. That sounds like let's not go there. Elise, anything that, I mean, it sounds like you're all sorted. It sounds like you just walk into places and get big deals. But is there something that you would like to see that would help you and support you?
Yeah, but it's a broader conversation. It's not only distribution. I think that distributors today are the ones that carry the most risk, meaning that a producer comes in and has an idea. And of course, I know it's not, I'm not talking general, but most of the time the producer comes in, gets soft money in, gets equity in from other firms, and gets whatever, how they raise the money to make the movie. The movie doesn't work, but the producer is paid, and he doesn't lose any money. Not always true, I know. But for the distributor, we take the biggest risk all the time. And if it fails, it fails. And somewhere, I remember when I started in this industry, I come from the games industry traditionally. I was like, why is the system like this? Why isn't it broader? Why, if the movie doesn't work, I put up money so the movie can be made. Sales today are a pre-financing system to make movies. But although I put up that money, still, if it fails, and it has like a win in another country, I don't get any of those overages. I don't get any compensations. And I think somewhere that is something that needs to change in the next few years. And I think that we already seen that in sales companies, the sales companies that just take a movie and flip it, they don't really care about the movie if it fails or not. If it's a good sales agent, they will care, but they don't really. The moment that a sales company also puts equity or money into the movie, they care about the movie. They want the movie to perform because suddenly they have stake in it. So we've seen that happening, sales companies becoming producers, and I think distributors also need to find different ways. What if we take MG, and MG is MG plus equity? They still get the same money.
Yeah.
Only we get maybe a little bit back if things go wrong. It's not crazy, but that could be interesting.
No, and I think the point you're making about the risk-taking end of the market is the bit where there isn't. And there's even, I mean, the other thing that strikes me when you're talking about Benelux is you have the stability of having a region that you can get rights for. I mean, those kind of things are really essential, that we hold on to that territorial kind of rights system in order to make that work. But you're saying within that territorial rights system, there's some room potentially for some really interesting options.
If you buy a finished film, I think it's different. If you buy a movie that needs to go in production and sales is a part of the financing of the movie, well, then it needs to be structured differently. And of course, that is the distributor who has to do that. But that also means that we all need to get into the producer side, because let's be honest, producers don't know what distributors do, and distributors don't know what producers do. We don't. But we need to get them together, and then I think you can get in a more interesting landscape.
I think this is a beautiful loving note, and I think after this, everyone should find a distributor and a producer, have a really big drink, and I think we could make beautiful films together. So that's where I think we need to end this. I think what you've got is a really strong sense of the landscape and of the way that the curators, the entrepreneurs, the distributors, the publishers, the risk takers are actually navigating this changing market. And let's hope for the sake of film, they all succeed. So thank you very much.
Thank you.